I packed their suitcases by the door. She grabbed the phone and screamed, "He's violent! Save us!" 10 minutes later, police were at the gate. Neighbors backed her story. Only later it turned out they were her friends, coached in advance. But I had one ace left, recordings of her conversations. And when the court heard her own voice saying, "We'll throw the old man out and split the money," she got something very different from what she expected. My name is Walter. I am 71, a widower, and a grandfather to 2 little boys who think my shed is a pirate ship. Last spring, my son Daniel and his wife Lila moved into my house for a few months. He had work trouble. She had plans. The boys needed stability. I agreed. Family is family. At first it felt good. I fried eggs in the mornings and the boys fed crusts to the sparrows. We drew treasure maps and taped them to the fridge. Daniel fixed a loose hinge. Lila arranged flowers by the sink. We said, "This will be simple." Small things changed quickly. Lila borrowed my study for her boxes and called my wife's china dated. She slid the plates into the garage without asking. She told the boys to call her captain during pirate games and told me I could be the old deckhand. I smiled once. I did not smile the second time. She talked about money like it was a paint color. "We should modernize," she said. "Open the walls. New furniture. Daniel should be on your accounts. It will be easier." Daniel kept quiet, eyes on his phone. I wrote the date and her words in a small notebook I kept in my shirt pocket. Writing made my hands stop shaking. I set house rules on one sheet of paper and stuck it to the fridge. Short lines, plain words. Ask before moving things. No surprise guests. No secrets about money. Be kind in front of the boys. Lila read the list, smiled, and set her coffee on the counter where the rings would show. Neighbors started waving more, especially 2 women who often stood with Lila by the fence, talking low and then laughing. They looked at my porch like it was a stage. I did not know their names. I noticed how quickly they learned mine. I locked my study at night. I put my important papers in a fireproof box and slid it under the bed. I kept a spare key with a friend from church. I made sure the door camera's little light glowed red. I told the boys, "If anything feels wrong, you come to me." Always Lila grew busier. Packages arrived with new pillows and a glossy rug. She pushed the old coffee table toward the basement door with her foot. "We will find a place for it," she said. I said, "It has a place." We both heard the rest we did not say. I kept the house clean, the yard trimmed, and the boys on a steady schedule. Simple meals, early bedtimes, pirate stories where the crew tells the truth and everyone shares the gold. I wanted the home to feel like a safe harbor, not a ship in a storm. I did not know it then, but the day I would pack suitcases by the door was already on its way. It started on a Tuesday, quiet as a held breath. The boys were at school. Daniel was at a temp job. I came home early from the hardware store with a bag of screws and a new hinge for the back gate. The kitchen window was open. The wind moved the curtains like slow water. I heard Lila's voice inside, bright, sharp, and excited. "Same plan," she said. "He loses his temper, we call." The neighbors backed me up. "We'll throw the old man out and split the money." Another woman answered low and quick. "I told Carrie and June. They'll say they heard shouting. One will say she saw a bruise." Easy. That was the first time I heard their names. Carrie and June. The bag of screws bit into my hand. My heart thumped, heavy and hollow. I did not walk in. I did not make a speech. I stepped back, turned, and went to the shed. I sat on the workbench and counted to 40. When my breath slowed, I remembered the small cameras I had put in after my wife died. They had microphones. They kept time like careful clocks. I checked the feed on my old laptop. The sound was clear. I saved the file to a thumb drive. I saved another copy to the little cloud account my nephew set up for me after Helen passed, the one with the easy password I could remember. I wrote the date and time on an index card with a blue pen. I tucked the thumb drive into a pill bottle and slid it into my tool chest. Simple. Quiet. No noise out loud. The next day brought more. Lila put her phone on speaker and held a quick meeting right there in my kitchen, with 2 neighbors on the line. She gave them lines like a coach. "You heard a crash," she said. "You heard me cry. You saw Grandpa grab my arm last week. Keep the story steady. Ready?" They both said yes. I saved that too. After I had 2 days of proof, I called a woman from the community center. She helps seniors when families turn rough. She said, "Walter, write everything down. Do not fight. Do not warn them. Keep copies. Tell one trusted person." So I did. I gave a copy of the files to my friend Pete from church, a quiet man with big hands. I said, "If anything happens, bring these to me." He put the envelope in his jacket like it was a fragile egg. The house changed in small, mean ways. Lila set heavy boxes on my late wife's quilt and said, "Oops." She hid my car keys and then found them and laughed. She placed a glass on the edge of a shelf so it would fall when I walked by. When it smashed, she said, "Walter, you are so clumsy." She was pushing me to flare up. I did not. I cleaned the glass, swept twice, and kept the camera light glowing red. Daniel kept his eyes low and his words short. "Work's rough," he said. He looked thin. I wanted to take him fishing and shake some sense into him at the same time. I did neither. I kept my voice calm around the boys. I made chili, grilled cheese, apples with peanut butter. I told pirate stories where the captain returns treasure he did not earn. The boys slept easy. That mattered. One night I sat at the table and wrote a plan in 5 simple lines. 1. Keep calm. 2. Keep copies safe. 3. Tell the right helper. 4. Pack bags. 5. Leave if it turns loud. I slept with that paper under my pillow. I woke at dawn feeling older and sharper at once. I washed the breakfast pans before anyone else was up and put on a clean shirt. I set the boys' homework on the table with 2 pencils sharpened to fine points, like little arrows. I wanted the day to be straight and clear. Late morning, I stood in my bedroom and opened the old suitcase that had traveled with me and Helen to the Grand Canyon. I packed Lila's and Daniel's clothes neatly, shirts, socks, jeans. Before I set the suitcases by the door, I took the thumb drive from the tool chest and slipped it into my pocket. I added their toiletries. I tucked the boys' school schedule in the outside pocket. I left out a clean shirt for Daniel because I remembered he always forgets one cuff button. I was angry, yes, but I did not want chaos. I wanted the exit to be smooth. That was my way. I carried the suitcases to the front door and set them by the mat, handles out. The house went very still. Lila came down the stairs in soft shoes. She saw the bags. Her face went tight, then smooth. She looked at me like a person testing a fence for weak spots. "What is this?" she asked. "I am asking you and Daniel to move out today," I said. "You have used my home like a stage. That ends now." Her eyes slid to the door camera, then back to me. A tiny smile touched her mouth and then disappeared. She reached for her phone. "Do not," I said, not loud. "There is no need." She lifted the phone anyway and pressed a button. She took 2 steps back, as if I were reaching for her. I was not. I stood with my hands open at my sides so there would be no mistake. Then she screamed into the phone. Big, wet tears. A broken voice. A performance. "He's violent. Save us. He's throwing us out. He grabbed me. Please, please." The boys ran from the den, little faces white. "Grandpa?" the older one said. "It is all right," I told them. "Go to the living room. Turn on the cartoons. I will be right here." They went, because in our house the grown-ups set the tone. My tone was steady. My heart was a drum in my ears, but my voice was water, low and even. I stood where I was and watched Lila. She did not touch me. She did not have to. Sirens carry a long way in our neighborhood. You can hear them before they turn the corner. She kept talking and crying into the phone, saying my name, saying danger, saying afraid. I did 3 things, slow and clear. I put my wallet, keys, and phone on the hall table. I took the thumb drive from my pocket and slipped it into my sock. I picked up my small notebook and tucked it into my shirt. Then I opened the front door and waited on the porch so no one could say I tried to hide. The sun was bright. The air tasted like cut grass. A bird hopped on the railing and cocked its head, as if it had a question and was waiting for the answer. The patrol car turned onto our street with the siren off now, just lights. It rolled to a stop at the gate. 2 officers got out. They stood tall and careful, the way people do when they do not yet know who is telling the truth. Inside the house, the boys whispered to each other under the sound of the cartoon theme song. Down the block, 2 women left a porch in a hurry. I had seen them with Lila many times that month. They came up the sidewalk fast, faces set, ready to nod at anything. The door camera blinked its red light, recording every step, every word. I breathed in. I breathed out. The day I had not seen coming was here. I could not stop it, but I could be ready. They had 3 voices and a script. I had a quiet plan to restore justice. In the next 5 minutes, the officers would choose which story to believe. But before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. 1 officer spoke to me. 1 watched the house. I kept my hands open at my sides. "Sir, what is going on today?" "My name is Walter," I said. "I am calm. I am safe. I will leave for the night if that helps everyone cool down." Lila rushed to the gate, crying, "He grabbed me! He threatened me!" The 2 neighbors hurried up behind her and nodded like bobbleheads. "I heard shouting," one said. "I saw bruises last week," the other added. The officers looked at me. I did not look at the neighbors. I did not look at Lila. I spoke slowly. "I did not grab anyone. The boys are inside watching a cartoon. They are safe. I want a peaceful night. I will pack a toothbrush and go. Tomorrow I will have something to show you that explains all of this." I could see the choice on their faces. A loud story and a quiet plan. The older officer nodded first. "All right, sir," he said. "Let us keep this calm. You can take a small bag and go for the night." "Thank you," I said. "May I step inside with you walking behind me?" I will not close a door. I will not raise my voice. We went in together. The boys peeked around the couch. I crouched down so my eyes were level with theirs. "I am going to the motel tonight," I told them. "You will sleep here. You are safe. I will see you in the morning." "Are you in trouble?" the older one asked. "No," I said. "I am doing the right thing in the right way." I stood up, took my toothbrush, a clean shirt, and my small notebook. I did not touch Lila. I did not speak to her. She stood by the stairs, pressing the back of her hand to her forehead like a stage actress. The neighbors hovered, ready to agree with anything. At the door, I set my wallet and keys on the table for the officers to see, then picked them up again. Clear moves. No surprises. The red light on the door camera kept blinking. That little eye saw everything. On the porch, the younger officer lowered his voice. "Thank you for keeping this calm." "Peace is cheaper than shouting," I said. He gave me a small card with his name on it. I put it in my shirt pocket next to the notebook. I walked to my truck without looking back. I did not slam the door. I did not peel out. I drove away slow, like a man leaving a church. At the motel, the clerk gave me a room with a humming air unit. I sat on the bed and took off my shoe. I slid out the thumb drive and placed it on the nightstand. I set out 3 things in a neat row: the drive, my notebook, and the small index card with the date and time. I drank a glass of water. I ate a granola bar from the glove box. I called my friend Pete from church. "Pete," I said, "tomorrow morning I need you to meet me for coffee." "I will be there," he said. "Do you want me to bring that envelope?" "Yes," I said. "Bring it sealed." Then I called the woman from the community center who had told me to keep notes. "It happened," I said. I stayed calm. I left for the night. "You did well," she said. "Sleep if you can. Bring your notes in the morning. Keep your words short. Let the recording speak." I did one more thing before sleep. I drove to the precinct on Maple. The lobby was bright. The air hummed. "I want to add information to a call from my address tonight," I said. The desk sergeant slid me a form. I wrote slow. Names, times, no shouting, no contact, voluntary exit. I labeled the thumb drive, Kitchen Tuesday 11:22 a.m., Kitchen Wednesday 9:07 a.m. I thought, keep it simple, put the facts on paper. He sealed the envelope and stamped the time. He handed me a small white slip. "Property receipt," he said. "Case number." I felt my shoulders drop. Paper is steady. The older officer from my gate walked in. He saw me and nodded. "Thanks for staying calm last night," he said. I nodded back. I drove to the motel. My phone buzzed. Daniel. "Are you safe, Dad?" "I am." "She says you grabbed her." I looked at the receipt. I thought, do not argue. Save it for daylight. "Tomorrow you will hear a recording," I said. "Put the boys to bed. No talk around them." "Yes, sir," he said. In the room, I set two things in a row on the desk, my notebook and the property receipt. I wrote the case number on an index card and underlined it. I put the officer's card beside it. I thought, everything has a place. The truth has a place. I let the room go quiet. I laid out my plan on the motel desk in 5 simple lines and read it again. I set an early alarm. I checked the thumb drive once more. The room was quiet, but my head was loud. I turned on the lamp and read a short book from the dresser drawer until my eyes felt heavy. Before I slept, I whispered one sentence to the ceiling. Tomorrow, the truth walks in first. Morning came like a switch. I woke before the alarm, shaved slow, and put on a clean shirt that did not shout. I laid my proof in order on the desk, thumb drive, notebook, index card with date and time. I made one more copy of the files on a spare drive and slid it into my wallet. Backups are quiet courage. Pete met me at the diner when the sky was still pale. He put the sealed envelope on the table and ordered black coffee. We did not talk much. He just said, "You are not alone." And that was enough. I ate toast because empty stomachs shake. We left with 2 copies of everything, one in my pocket and one in Pete's jacket. The woman from the community center met us by the steps of the courthouse. She put a calm hand on my arm and said, "Short words, steady voice." I nodded. We went inside. The courtroom was small and cool, rows of chairs, a table at the front. Lila was already there with Daniel and the 2 neighbors. She had red eyes and a box of tissues. Daniel looked like he had not slept. The neighbors sat straight, faces firm, like they had practiced in a mirror. A clerk called my name and hers. We stood. Lila went first. She cried. She said I was angry and dangerous. The neighbors took turns nodding and repeating their lines. I heard shouting. I saw bruises. It was a soft rain of lies, steady, practiced, meant to soak through. When it was my turn, my voice felt far away, but I kept it slow. "I would like to play a recording," I said. "It will be clear." A man rolled a small speaker onto the table. The spare drive from my wallet clicked into the side. The originals were already logged at the precinct. 1 button. Then the room heard Lila's own voice from my kitchen. "Same plan. He loses his temper, we call. The neighbors back me up. We'll throw the old man out and split the money." Then the other voice. "I told Carrie and June. They'll say they heard shouting. One will say she saw a bruise. Easy." Then Lila again, on speaker with the 2 neighbors, handing out lines like homework. No one spoke. Even the air listened. Lila's mouth opened and closed once. The neighbors stared at their knees. Daniel covered his face with his hand. I stood still with my hands at my sides, the way I had at the gate. The judge looked at Lila. "Is this your voice?" She whispered, "Yes." "Did you plan this?" Silence held the room. Then, "Yes." He did not make a speech. He did not ask for more. He looked at me and said words I will never forget because they were simple and strong. "You go home today." He looked at Lila. "You leave today." He told a uniformed officer waiting by the door to meet us at my house. "You will stand by while they pack," he said. "Make sure nothing is broken. Make sure the gentleman is not bothered." Then he told Lila and the two women to sit down, and he spoke to them in a level tone that made them smaller with each word. I did not listen to the rest. I had heard enough. Outside, Daniel caught up to me on the steps. "Dad, Not now," I said gently. "Later. Today is about getting calm back." The officer followed me home in his car. Lila and the neighbors came 10 minutes later in theirs. No one had much to say now. The officer stood in the hall while Lila packed for real. She tried to lift my wife's quilt and slide it into a bag. "No," I said. "That stays." The officer nodded. "Leave it." She reached for the china box in the garage. "No." "Leave it." It went like that for an hour. Clothes, toiletries, a few toys that were theirs, not mine. Not a fork more. No shouting, no slamming. If fear is a storm, this was the calm that follows, where you see what is broken and what still stands. When the last box was in the trunk, Lila looked back at the house like it owed her something. I stood in the doorway with the officer beside me. The red light on the door camera blinked. "Keys," the officer said. She dropped them in his palm. He handed them to me. "Good day, ma'am," he said, and she went down the steps without answering. The neighbors hurried after her. Their faces were tight and small. They did not look at me. The officer tipped his cap once and left. Then there was only the quiet. I could hear a lawnmower 2 streets over. A dog barked once and went back to whatever dogs do on ordinary afternoons. I locked the door. I stood in the front room and breathed out a long, old breath I felt like I had been holding for a month. I did 3 practical things right away. First, I changed the locks. The locksmith came from 2 blocks away and was done in 20 minutes. Fresh keys. New start. Second, I reset the camera passwords and moved the recorder base into my locked study. I put a small sign by the doorbell that said, "Audio and video recording on these premises." Simple words. Clear warning. Third, I called Daniel. "You can see the boys," I said. 3 afternoons a week. You come alone. You text before you arrive. If you break the rules, you lose the visits for a month. He said, "Yes, sir," with a voice that remembered being my son. That evening, the boys and I ate soup at the table. We drew a new treasure map. The X was our house. I said, "This is a safe place." They nodded. They knew. Later, I stood at the sink and washed 2 bowls and 2 spoons. I kept the water running a little longer than I needed. Then I turned it off and listened to the kind of silence you only get after a hard truth finally speaks. Weeks passed, and the house learned how to breathe again. I watered the tomatoes at dawn. I oiled the front gate so it would not shriek like it did the morning the patrol car pulled in. The air settled. The rooms felt like mine and Helen's again. Clean, simple, ready. I kept waiting for anger to come back and bite me, but it did not. It walked beside me for a while and then it drifted off. What stayed was something quieter, a promise I made to myself. I would protect this home. I would teach the boys what truth sounds like. I would give Daniel a chance, but not a free one. At night I still heard Lila's voice in my head, sharp and sweet at the same time. It used to make my chest go tight. Now it just made me check the front door twice and sleep with my glasses on the nightstand, not across the room. Precautions do not cost much. Fear does. I spoke to Helen in the kitchen once out loud, like an old man does when the house is quiet. "Your china is safe," I said, drying one plate with the towel. "Your quilt is safe. Your grandsons are eating well." Saying that made me feel steady. I could almost hear her little laugh. The house felt less empty. Daniel kept his word. He came 3 afternoons a week. He came alone. He brought the boys back on time. He said thank you when I handed him a sandwich or a towel for their muddy hands. He did not say I am sorry the first week. He did not have to. His face said it every time he stood on the porch with his shoulders a little lower and his eyes a little clearer. We started with small work. He fixed the loose board on the steps. He rewired a stubborn lamp under my guidance. He learned to put tools back in the same place every time. That is a rule in my shed and in my life. Things return to where they belong. Trust is one of those things. I kept a simple routine, the kind a child can understand and an old man can keep. Morning, sweep the kitchen, check the locks, water the garden. Afternoon, read with the boys, light walk around the block. Evening, set out 2 bowls and 2 spoons for breakfast, so the day starts with no scramble. I also kept a very small go bag by my bed. Not out of fear, out of respect for how fast life can turn. It held a copy of my notes, a spare key, a list of phone numbers in large print, and a thumb drive. Calm is easier when you know where your shoes are. People asked me what revenge felt like. I did not call it revenge. I called it a clean table. When a lie tries to sit at your table, you do not argue with it. You pull back the chair and it falls on the floor because there is no chair. Proof is not a firework. It is a lamp. You turn it on and see dust you can wipe away. I thought a lot about the boys. They did not need speeches. They needed steady adults and clear rules. We made a little family pledge and put it on the fridge with a magnet shaped like a fish. We tell the truth. We ask before we take. We fix what we break. We help each other feel safe. I did allow myself one strong boundary I could hold in my hands. I kept the house papers where only I could find them, and I told one person where that place was. I added 2 names to my call first list. I checked the batteries in the door camera every first Monday. I kept a paper notebook even after the computers, because paper does not forget when you are tired. These were not fears, these were habits. Sometimes, late at night, I replayed one short part of that long week. The moment the officer placed the keys in my hand and said, "Good day, sir." Not a medal, not a parade, just the sound of good order returning. That was enough for me. Daniel and I had our hard talk on a Thursday after the boys fell asleep on the couch. We stood by the sink and kept our voices low. "Dad," he said, staring at the dishwater, "I thought I could keep peace by staying quiet." "Silence is not peace," I said. "It is only quiet." There is a difference. In the end, my payback looked like this. My wife's quilt folded where it belonged, 2 grandsons sleeping with crumbs on their shirts, my son learning how to sand a board without taking off too much, and a home that chose truth in a hard week and kept choosing it after. Lila wanted a fast win and a quiet old man who would fade. What she got was a steady voice, a red camera light, and a door that does not open for lies. I stood on the back steps one evening and watched the boys chase fireflies. The yard smelled like cut grass and soap from the kitchen window. I felt tired in a good way, like a man at the end of a long day who knows exactly where his tools are. I said a small thing to myself, not grand, not bitter, just true. This is my house. This is our family. We went through a storm. We are still standing. Should I have confronted Lila on the spot, or did I do right by keeping quiet and building a clean case? What would you choose? Comment below.
My grandpa's words really happened. I believe him. If you want more true tales stories like this, hit subscribe.